What is the difference between a freight forwarder and a carrier? When purchasing transport services, many customers are confused about the differences between a freight forwarder and a carrier. By the end of the process, their choice ends up being limited to one of them. While both forwarders and carriers perform some of the same functions in business, there are significant differences between them that should be considered before making any decisions. In this article, we will explore these differences to help you make an informed decision about which company is right for your business needs. What is a freight forwarder? A freight forwarder is a company that acts as your agent to move your goods from one point to another. It is their responsibility to arrange the transportation and to handle all documentation, including customs documentation, related to your goods. Because they can charge you fees for handling your shipments and arranging transport, it is important to find a freight forwarder that has experience doing so. Some freight forwarders can work with international shipping companies to help you find carriers for your shipments, but you must also choose a freight forwarder that is authorized to handle customs documentation and handle the transport process for your goods. What is a carrier? A carrier handles the transportation of your goods, both inbound and outbound. Therefore, it is responsible for the import process and the customs documentation, which includes all applicable tariffs, taxes, and duties, as well as all documentation related to transport, such as bills of lading and weighbill. If you choose to use a forwarder to handle your shipments, that company will arrange for transport using a carrier. You will be responsible for paying any additional charges associated with using a carrier. Differences between freight forwarders and carriers. There are several key differences between a freight forwarder and a carrier. Let's take a closer look at these differences and how they can impact your decision-making process. Costs. The cost of transporting your goods will vary depending on the size of your shipment and the location of the destination. If your goods are bulky or if they will be transported over a longer distance, the cost of transporting them may be higher than the cost of sending a smaller shipment. Service level. The level of service that you will receive will depend on the type of service provider you choose. Unlike a freight forwarder, a carrier does not handle customs documentation, so the level of service will vary depending on the experience of the company you choose. Traceability. The traceability of your shipments will depend on the service level that you receive from the carrier. Generally, the more information you provide about the shipment, the more information you will get back from the carrier. Benefits of using a freight forwarder. Inbound transportation. If you choose to use a freight forwarder to handle your inbound transportation, they will generally handle all the customs documentation and transportation related to your shipments. This can significantly save time. Outbound transportation. If you choose to use a freight forwarder, they can arrange for your outbound transportation. You will not be responsible for paying the cost of transporting your goods. Find the right carrier. Some freight forwarders provide the service of finding the right carrier for your shipments, helping you avoid any unnecessary interactions with the carrier. Cons of using a freight forwarder. Expensive. If you choose the option of using a freight forwarder, you will generally pay a premium price for their services. Time-consuming. The time-consuming nature of handling inbound and outbound transportation can affect your business operations if you have many shipments to manage. No clear decision-making process. Choosing a freight forwarder can be difficult because of the lack of clear decision-making processes. Conclusion. Freight forwarders provide a cost-effective way of transporting your goods while leaving the actual transport of the goods to the carrier. Freight forwarders are an attractive option when you want to save time but don't want to deal with the hassle of handling your own transportation. If you choose to use a freight forwarder for inbound transportation and a carrier for your outbound transportation, you can save on the cost of transportation by using a freight forwarder. On the other hand, if you choose to use a freight forwarder for both inbound and outbound transportation, you will be responsible for paying the cost of transportation. Freight forwarders can be helpful, but they also have many drawbacks that can affect your decision-making process.